Greetings and good afternoon. I don't see any folks in the chat, but it's telling me it's some folks watching. So please let me know if you can hear me. I am notorious for not having my mic on. Notorious. Breeze. Ooh, that sound on. Ooh, thank you, Lord. Hey, y'all. How y'all doing? Hey, Manny. Uh-oh. They coming in. They coming in. Auntie, huh? All right, nephew. All right. So it's working. Good. Because y'all know it'd be rough up in here most times. But at any rate, good to be with you all here on Friday on Root Work on Black Liberation Media. My name is Tonda Sizwe Shimarenga, and Jackie Lukman is going to be up in here in an hour, so we got to keep this tight. Even though I'm starting late, we're going to try and keep it tight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, support. Support my personal Root Work channel. Please be a subscriber over there. You already subscribing here on YouTube. Please remember to support us here at Black Liberation Media. Join the Patreon because YouTube tripping with the money. We need your financial support to continue to bring you the analyses and the content and the voices that you're not going to get anyplace else. So, hey, Leah, bunch of y'all. So look, before I forget, I do that too, I forget. Let me send some shout outs real quick for folks who have been supporting Root Work. Julian Kahn, Marcus Chow, Tara Graham, Kevin Atkinson, is it Katrin? Samara, Martin Hernandez, Asia Nicole Hodges, Keontae, Josh Ingram, Samuel Gardner, Sean Ewald, Zinzabel, Carmen Morgan, Michael Richardson, Jose Benavidez, Gary Baca, Renee Yaworski, Mike Spites, Dexter Story. All of these folks have been of great support to the work of Root Work. And I want to thank you all also, again, as I said, for tuning in. So, real quick, I always say that real quick. It ain't going to be real quick. I can't seem to locate it at the moment because, like I said, I be having issues. But I had some screenshots I wanted to share with you all because, we believe in receipts. Yes, we do. What kind of receipts am I talking about? I'm talking about this most recent murder by the state. Oh, okay. It's just not letting me. I can't. All right. Can't get to the screenshots. Unless, no. Okay, we won't deal with that. But here's what I wanted to talk to you about today. So, Brother Khalifa, Imam Khalifa, actually. The world knew him as Marcellus Williams, but he made Shahada his declaration of faith, and he took on the name of Khalifa ibn Rayford Daniels Abdul-Qudduus. And he was lynched by the state this past Tuesday. I did not lift a finger in support of this man's life. Actually, I did lift a finger. I lifted one finger. I sent out a post on Facebook. It may have been Monday. Prior to that, I shared other people's stories on Instagram. And the screenshots that for whatever reason, not for whatever reason, the usual reason, you know how I go. The screenshots I was trying to share with you all. I did a Google News search, and I invite you to do the same. I did a Google News search on his name, Marcellus Williams, Missouri, to see what had been in the news about him. It was about, I can't remember how many entries it was, 2 pages. The oldest was from a month ago, from the Innocence Project, talking about his case. After that, maybe a week to 2 weeks ago, CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, sent out some information. Other than that, that's all that came up under Google. Other than that, here on Black Liberation Media, of course, folks did work with M.L. Smith, the Missourians to Abolish the Death Penalty, Missourians for Justice, mojustice.org, about a month or so ago. But other than that, I don't remember hearing about this brother's case. It seemed like I heard about it last week. I felt like I heard about it last week. I don't remember hearing anything prior to that. And then there was this flurry because the execution was upon us. And then we looked around, and what happened Tuesday? He was murdered by the state. Around the same time, even less time, Freddie Owens, who was executed in South Carolina. I mean, I blinked and that brother was taken out. I don't remember hearing about this brother's case. And I was concerned about that. I was curious about that. Everything seemed to move so quickly. Like I said, by the time I realized that I needed to get involved and do something, it was too late. It was a day or two before the execution. And I ended up not lifting a finger, lifting one finger to push the send button or the enter button. And when I first got on social media, well, other than MySpace, when I first got on Facebook, not long after Facebook, Troy Davis was about to be assassinated by the state of Georgia. And there was so much more time involved in that. For those of us who were not in Georgia, out here in the world, social media, trying to do what we can, it was months. It seemed like there were months and months to get to know the details of the case by heart, the fine, minute points of the case, to get to correspond with Troy, to get to know him, his family, his mom, his sister. And so when, seeing all of that and noticing the egregiousness of the case, I just knew we were going to save that brother. I knew the execution would be halted at the last minute and he would still be alive. But I was wrong. And that took a lot out of me. It took a lot out of me. And what I've been seeing on my timeline in these last few days all over social media, people who I know, people who I don't know, who have been involved in this case, it has hit them the same way Troy Davis hit me. It has taken a lot of the wind out of people. It has devastated folks. I was watching Mark Lamont Hill the other night, his report after the fact of Khalifa's murder. Now, as you know, I mean, no disrespect. This is all love. Mark has the gift of gab. We all know this. Mark Lamont Hill could barely talk. He could barely get the words out. He was so wrecked by this brother's murder. Death penalty cases take a lot of work, a lot of energy, and when we are unable to save these folks, it takes a lot out of us. I didn't even get the opportunity to emotionally connect with the injustice of this brother's case. but I understand what people are feeling right now. Like I said, it was the same thing that I felt when we lost Troy to murder at the hands of the state of Georgia. But Troy's case, as I said, there was so much more time to get involved and to do the work. Similar to Mumia Abu Jamal. Mumia Abu Jamal's death warrant for the murder of a police officer in 1981 was signed in June of 1995. And he was scheduled to be put to death August 17th, 1995, the birth date of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. There had already been a worldwide network awareness of Mumia Abu Jamal's case, organizing around the case. When that death warrant was signed, it went into overdrive. It was on steroids, to use a popular phrase. And Mumia's execution was stayed. And it was held off, and it was held off. And eventually, we see that Mumia's execution, his sentence of execution, is vacated, and he's resentenced to life in prison. Well, of course, so many people had been clamoring for Mumia to get a new trial, whereas so many others of us were saying, just let him out, period, either because he's innocent and didn't do it, or he's done enough time, let him go. But the point being is that he was not snatched from us in terms of murder by the state. He was not executed. He's in living hell right now. They're trying to kill him in other ways, such as medical neglect, but he's still here. And again, we had so much more time to get to know Mumia, to get to know the fine details, the minute details of the case, and for the organizing to take effect. And so that's what bothers me the most about Imam Khalifa's case. I can't speak for everyone. Yes, there have been people who have been working on this case from the beginning. I'm Jane come lately, as they say, Aisha come lately. I needed more time. I looked around and the brother was taken from us. I blinked and Freddie Owens was assassinated in South Carolina. So, as I said, it bothered me, but I also wanted to kind of see if there's a way I could figure out the why. I'm always asking the question, why? So I asked Noelle Hanrahan to join me today to talk about Mumia's case in particular. Noelle Hanrahan, founder of Prison Radio, which has produced Mumia's commentaries since at least 1992. Noelle, in addition to being a journalist, a researcher, she is also a lawyer and a private investigator. So again, she's someone who's been familiar with this case almost from the beginning. Well, not from the beginning, which was 1981, but she's been involved over 30 years with Mumia. And I was running it by her the other day, and I asked her to come on the show today to talk about Mumia's case in particular, but any other area of expertise that she has. So let me bring Noelle on now. Are you there, Noelle?
I am here.
Thank you so much for being on Rootwork today.
You're welcome.
So we talked about it briefly when I called you the other day, but for our audience, if you could recap for me, I'm trying to gain an understanding of not just the time that we had to organize around Mumia, but what were the legal issues that allowed us so much time, if that's one way of looking at it.
I think that we had death warrants that were going to be stayed by the federal courts. So we had death warrants issued by the state of Pennsylvania and by local judges in the common pleas courts, yet they were going to be reviewed by a federal court. So we were confident that Mumia Abu Jamal would get a stay of execution the first time he got it, The second time, we were also pretty confident that he would have gotten a stay of execution, just because there were pending litigation that we could have appealed in federal court as well.
Y'all let me know if the microphone is giving too much feedback. If my microphone is giving too much feedback from Noelle. You're saying that there were, I'm sorry, legal stays or?
So anytime there is an execution warrant that's granted, it means that the state is going to prepare to kill these individuals. And Mumia was moved to a unit, and he was moved to a place where he would have been executed. He was stripped of all of his clothing. He was put in a dry cell, and he had 10 days left to be before he was given a stay. So it's the state. And while you can predict that there might be a stay, there's no guarantee sometimes with the state about what it will do. So I think there was a lot of pressure, and Mumia felt a lot of pressure. And partly why this was happening was because they wanted to accelerate the hearings that were happening in the local common pleas court, the hearings on new evidence. So these hearings are happening before Albert Sabo. Now, with the looming execution, they could use that to rush these hearings forward and to actually give them short shift. So I think that happened during the course of that summer. His execution was slated for August 10th, and it was I believe that the federal courts or the federal politicians actually told Albert Sabo that he needed to grant a stay, and he did grant a stay in early August.
Albert Sabo, the original trial judge who was responsible for most of the madness in the courtroom regarding Mumia, and was told by his superiors to stay the execution.
Correct.
So are you talking about Pennsylvania in particular, or does it vary from state to state?
I think it varies from state to state. And I've only seen a couple of death warrants in a couple of states. So I would say my main experience is with Pennsylvania.
Did you happen to have any experience or any experiences around Troy Davis's case?
I met with the local committee. There was a committee that was pretty active in Northern California, in Walnut Creek, actually. And so at the time it was happening, we were meeting and comparing notes and doing some organizing together.
Okay.
So I saw it as an organizer and also as a journalist when I was working at KPFA Radio.
So what are some things you can share with us about that particular time? Those meetings that you had, the notes.
There was an immense sense of possibility and hope. There have been a number of cases that people have worked on very diligently and did a lot of massive international and national organizing. And there has been some jurisdictions that have not been able to be swayed, where there haven't been able to be any relief granted. And I think that was devastating for the community organizers who dedicated their lives. I know a woman who mortgaged her house for Troy Davis's work. We interviewed the family of Troy Davis, and it is just devastating to be part of a process where you lose those kinds of decisions. I've been to many execution watches outside of San Quentin. I produced KPFA's coverage of the Robert Alton Harris execution, which was stayed at the last minute and then overturned by the successive courts. So it was reimposed. It was stayed at like 10 p.m. at night. Every journalist went home. And then a friend of mine called me back, and we went back into the studio because we heard that the federal courts had done the stay, and he was executed at like 4:50 a.m.
4:50 in the morning.
After people had left. So that was the first execution in California in 25 years. It was in 1992. So that's really one of the first experiences I had with death row, and it was the thing that inspired me to find Mumia and record him, because I had heard a scratchy tape of his, but I also knew that when we had covered the Robert Alton Harris execution in 1992, we hadn't had a voice from death row, and I thought that it was unacceptable to be not covering it with the people that are dramatically involved. And I believed that they should have had a voice. I didn't think that the prison wall should prevent people on death row from speaking. And so a bunch of us kept working to make sure that those voices had a place to be heard.
Mm-hmm. I put into the chat the links to the Innocence Project, which took up Marcellus's case, and also a link to the Missouri Justice Coalition, Mo Justice, which was founded or co-founded by M.L. Smith, who has been here on Black Liberation Media most recently. Please check out those organizations if you have not already checked out those organizations. You've probably already heard Mumia's commentaries. However, that organization is prisonradio.org. Is that correct, Noelle?
Yes, it is.
Prisonradio.org. So please support the work of Prison Radio also in terms of amplifying the voices of those who are most impacted by the system. Innocence Project, which was co-founded by Barry Scheck, one of the attorneys on the O.J. Simpson case. They've helped to exonerate scores of people over the years. And again, mojustice.org. So, as I was saying, Noelle, you are an attorney. You are a private investigator. But the death penalty, we know, is state specific. It varies from state to state, and it is the governor that has the last say who has a say, if not the courts. We do know that this particular case of Imam Khalifa, the Supreme Court refused to hear the case, refused to stop the execution. 6 of the 9 justices, all the Republican appointees, dissents by, of course, the more liberal justices. We know that Mumia's case his death sentence was overturned, but he was resentenced to life in prison. And I'm quite sure that there have been updates before here on Black Liberation Media. However, if you could give us a quick update, what you know in terms of Mumia, what he's currently facing in terms of health and legal challenges.
So Mumia has been in prison for 42 years, and he's been challenging his conviction. And his latest salvo in the PCRA courts to try to get an evidentiary hearing, there was material that was found in the district attorney's office that was buried. Brady evidence, meaning it was favorable to Mumia, and also Batson evidence, evidence that suggested that there was racial bias in the jury selection. So those 2 pieces of evidence were being fought for so that Mumia would be able to have an evidentiary hearing. The local court, Lucretia Clemens, who is a common police court judge, denied it, both on procedural grounds and on the merits. Recently, on September 10th, the Superior Court in Pennsylvania also denied his appeal. Now he's going to appeal to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, but they don't have to take it. So there will be an appeal to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So his life without possibility of parole situation is still in place without adequate relief. And his lawyers, criminal defense attorneys, are working diligently to find other mechanisms to get back into court and also to appeal this particular case. And he should win. I mean, Mumia has fantastic issues. He's had 100 issues. These issues are a smoking gun. There was a letter from one of the critical witnesses, and the district attorney says it's one of the main witnesses, Robert Chobert, that says, "Where's my money?" And that was found and never turned over to the defense. And it was sent to the district attorney a month after the trial. And so he was saying, I'm following up on our phone conversations, and I just want to make sure that I do everything you need and fill out the right forms for the money I am owed for my testimony. So that is a smoking gun. That credibility determination of whether Robert Chobert was paid and bribed for his testimony should be determined. And then also the notes made by McGill, who was the district attorney that prosecuted this case. Well, Ed Rendell was the district attorney, and Jack McGill was the person who was in the courtroom. He made a lot of notes regarding racial and economic and other characterizations of the jurors. And it became clear after analyzing these notes, which had never been given to the defense before, that he was making racially distinctions between the jurors and excluding jurors from this case that were potentially should be on the case, so based on their race. So that argument should have been made. Batson is a controlling U.S. Supreme Court case. Brady is a controlling U.S. Supreme Court case, but the lower courts in Pennsylvania have chosen to ignore those standards. Mm-hmm. And now his health. Mumia has had a lot of health issues. So he had very serious hepatitis C complications in 2017. And we went to court and got a preliminary injunction, the first in the country, to order that the state give him the fast-acting antiviral cure to hepatitis C. And we were able to do that. But he went 2 years without being treated. So he suffered long-lasting effects from not being treated when he should have been treated for hepatitis C. So that happened. And then in 2021, he suffered from coronary, a heart attack or coronary care that needed a double bypass. So he had a double bypass in 2021, and he still hasn't gotten the necessary rehabilitation for heart surgery that would be a proper diet and better exercise. So he's in a very limited situation in SCI Mahanoy. It's a very restrictive prison, and he is in his cell 16 hours a day, and he very likely does not get enough exercise, and his diet is abysmal, even though the prison would say that it is cardiac heart healthy.
So
he's 70.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
He's 70.
70 years old. He's made it to 70 years of age.
Yeah, like Alice Walker says, he's got 99 lives. He was shot the night he was arrested, and he survived. He's survived 2 death warrants. Mm-hmm. He survived raging hepatitis C. He was deathly ill. He was in a diabetic coma because they had given him a steroid to treat his skin condition that was like extrahepatic, meaning it was associated with hepatitis C, and that sent him into a diabetic coma because they didn't test his blood sugar. So he was very near death when we were in the critical care unit with him, and he survived that. He came out, survived open heart surgery, and he is now, having just finished his 14th book. He's the editor of Beneath the Mountain, an anti-prison reader that just came out this summer on City Lights, and he's working on his PhD dissertation at the University of Santa Cruz, UC Santa Cruz.
UC Santa Cruz, right. I'm speaking with Noelle Hanrahan. She is the founder of Prison Radio, which amplifies the voices of those most impacted by the criminal and justice system here in the U.S. She's a journalist, independent researcher. She's also an attorney and a private investigator. I asked her to come on today and chat with me about some of the background issues, why it seemed that we had so much more time and were more successful in staying Mumia Abu Jamal's execution as opposed to those executions of Troy Davis and Imam Khalifa, Marcellus Williams, who was just executed Tuesday in St. Louis. I do not have, in addition to Noelle today, I did not have anyone available to speak on Troy's case or Imam Khalifa's case. So I've got 1:34 p.m. Jackie Lukman is going to be coming on at 2. I don't want to infringe on her time. If there are any folks in the chat who have any questions that they would like to ask of Noelle, now is your time. But let me real quick share this. This is an article from BuzzFeed last year. Excuse me, not BuzzFeed, the Daily Beast. Not last year, 2 years ago in 2022. We all know, and if we don't know, we all should know, that the Supreme Court ruled in 2022 that evidence of innocence is not enough. Being factually innocent is not enough to overturn a conviction, to free someone from prison, to free them from a death sentence, as in the case of Imam Khalifa on Tuesday, where none of the evidence implicated him, where DNA evidence could have cleared him, and yet the governor refused to stay the execution. The prosecuting attorney's office had even put forth a motion to vacate both the conviction and the sentence of death. But it was not enough to save him. Noelle, before I let you go, if you could just talk briefly. Again, Mumia was arrested in 1981. He's been imprisoned since 1981. And you met him around 1992, 11 years later. If you could just give us briefly some of your memories around the organizing, in addition to the legal work, what do you remember about the organizing around the time that the death warrant had been signed?
Now, the death warrant was in 1995.
Right.
And really, we had brought Mumia's voice to a national and international audience. Mm-hmm. So we went in 1992 and started recording his materials and putting that on KPFA. And then I pitched the story to National Public Radio and All Things Considered. I actually pitched it to Pacifica at the same time in the same city in Washington, D.C., because they built their national offices there. And Pacifica said, we won't even listen to it because we don't want to make him a martyr. And Ellen Weiss from All Things Considered said he's one of the best commentators I've ever heard. He's one of the top 3 commentators that we've ever heard, and we want to make him a national commentator on All Things Considered. So we started working with them to do that project. And when Bob Dole and the Senate threatened NPR's funding, then it became a national story. So that meant that we were censored from NPR and its 570 stations in the US, Hungary, South Africa, Mexico, and Canada, and potentially millions and millions of an audience. And we went then to Pacifica, and we went to Democracy Now!, and we went to each Pacifica station. So we got his voice out, and he started building a base for people understanding who he was, because we thought that when people could hear prisoners, then they could, uncensored, their own thoughts, then they could it would be more accessible, that people would be more being able to really understand who they were and connect with them. And then I went to New York and got Francis Golden, the literary agent, to represent him. And we brought out a collection of his essays. And that was his very first book, Live from Death Row. And it was a bestseller. So Addison Wesley put it out. It sold 30,000 copies in hardback, and then the repression was immense. So HBO was doing a piece that did eventually air, but was very repressed. Addison Wesley completely tanked all of its promotion because FOP was attacking it, and their textbook division in Texas. They were flying planes with banners over their corporate headquarters in Reading, Massachusetts. So there was an enormous amount of pressure both on NPR and Addison Wesley and HBO to really suppress Mumia's work. But it was also partly a firestorm of media. And in this context is when they started signing the death warrants. That is one of the main reasons. And also because Mumia Abu Jamal is Mumia Abu Jamal, because his voice is stunning, because his analysis is very cogent, and because he's accessible. He's a linguist. He is fluent in French. He's fluent in Spanish. He's fluent in German. He's got a very amazing ability to connect with people, and his delivery is fantastic. So I recently interviewed William Bill Simmering, who hired him at WHYY as a commentator and as a radio reporter back before he was incarcerated. And he said he was the next Bill Bradley. He was just that talented. He knew he was going to be a national star. He was very talented. And when I met him, he hadn't broadcast in 11 years. He was just absolutely convinced that he was going to come home. It was like, I was wrongly convicted. It's a matter of time. They're just going to get it right. I'm going to come home. And I visited him a lot in that moment. Year 11, year 12, year 13, year 14. By year 15, he was getting tired and worried about not getting justice, about not getting relief. So I saw him very early on in his journey here, and he was convinced that he was going to get out. And now I think he's very interested and very committed to coming home and to getting out. And it's been very difficult because they see Mumia Abu Jamal as a symbol and as a person who they do not want to release. Now, I think they were worried about the public uprising and backlash, and that's why they took away his death sentence. And they also wanted the death penalty to go away. So there's like this huge liberal class of people who are, wanting criminal justice reform. And I believe that they did not think that if Mumia Abu Jamal was in the class of prisoners who were on death row, that it would make it much more difficult to pass moratoriums. And that's one of the reasons why you're not seeing as many executions, because many states, of course, not Georgia, not Texas, have passed moratoriums. And California has one, Pennsylvania has one, and many states have abolished the death penalty, at least for the moment. So I think that there was a determination that Mumia Abu Jamal would kill the clerk if he remained as part of that class. So there was a lot of backroom dealing to get him out of that class and to overturn his sentence of death, but keep him in what we call death by incarceration, DBI.
Absolutely. They are still trying to kill Mumia Abu Jamal. I don't know what it's like to be a black man in prison, let alone on death row. It looks like he is going through hell. I'm just happy he was not executed. But the conditions under which he is forced to live under, I know that there are those who will say, well, death is better than this. And it's like, you damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I'm just happy for him and his family that he has survived. I think we have to fight. We have to survive. We have to love. When we fight, we win. When we survive, we win. When we love, we win. And I think he's really the essence of that. He is an incredible person who loves deeply. And I think that I value the fact that we have that, and that we can, but there's nothing like freedom. As much as we get to experience Mumia, we have to make sure that we do everything we can to secure his freedom. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one reason I became a lawyer, not so much for Mumia's case, though it's very valuable, but more because you can't do radio reporting the way we do it, producing a ton of work about prisoners, and that be the only thing you do. Like, when you report, you're, I think, also accountable for the conditions that you're discovering. You can't just rip and read and move on. Mm-hmm. You have to build a movement that's going to hold the prison accountable, and that's going to interrupt those injustices that you see. Mm-hmm. And being a lawyer helps me do that. It means that I can I can assist our correspondents in coming home in a much more concrete, deep way. I just am not producing the material. I am helping them figure out a way to transcend those barriers and those conditions. And so I feel like I needed to make that transition. I was also really angry that there were lawyers for mitigation cases, juvenile lifer cases, that weren't showing up, literally lying to the court that they were even seeing their clients. And I didn't have standing. I, as an investigator, was doing the work, but I couldn't, there was nothing I could do about the fact that the lawyers weren't doing their job. And so I thought I could either just punch them in open court and they could say why some little old lady clocked Mike Engel, or I could sign up for the LSATs. So in 2017, I was 54. I signed up for the LSATs, and I was sitting in my law school class in August of that year of 17, because I was so angry with the lawyers just not showing up. Not enough criminal defense lawyers, not enough people doing conditions cases. The bar is vastly geared towards business. I mean, they don't even teach criminal law in law school. So there's only 7% of the bars are people who defend prisoners, obviously, because we have such a mass incarceration problem. It's an assembly line. So we have to get in there and interrupt it. We have to disrupt it. We have to say what we see, and we have to take action.
Mm-hmm. Noelle, before you get up out of here, we do have one question from the chat. Leah Boggs wants to know, what would you say about people who want to reduce Imam Khalifa's case to politics and point at a Republican governor, as if to say this wouldn't happen under Democrats?
Oh, the Democrats and the Republicans are the same. There's absolutely no difference in terms of the actual policies around criminal justice. Very, very little difference. And the structures that both of them have created. So let's say we have radical Larry Krasner as a district attorney in Philadelphia. He's been limited by the structures that have been created by Ed Rendell, the big Democrat, the DNC chair, the Democratic governor, the mayor of Philadelphia, the former DA that was a DA when Mumia was prosecuted. That's a big D Democrat. So they've created all these structures. Biden was the engineer of mass incarceration. So enough, they're all responsible for this situation that we're in. It's not just on one party or the other, and they're close enough together that they're almost inseparable.
Mm-hmm.
But I should go too. But thank you so much for having me on. And, this media is so important. Tanda Sesway's work is crucial. It's been crucial for 30 years. It's been crucial ever since I first began to hear it. We were working in different coasts. You in Southern California, me in Northern California, but there are not that many people putting a bright white hot spotlight on these issues. And so we end up knowing who each other are. So I have appreciated your work for a very long time. And I'm so glad that you've survived your health challenges and you're here with us. And that's important.
Thank you so much, Noelle, for those kind words. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all the work you've been doing since 92 and before that. And your assistance with me personally. Noelle hooked me up with some software, y'all, back in the day. I'm sure there's a statute of limitations on that.
It's like taking space. Like we have to have this space so that our opinions and issues and we have to be able to talk to each other. So the fact that we're exercising and taking this land and this space and we're, using the places that we can get to, super important.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Noelle, for your work. Thank you so much for taking my call and coming on at the last minute. I really, really appreciate you.
You got it. Anytime.
All right, you take care.
All right. Bye for now.
Okay, peace. That was Noelle Hanrahan of Prison Radio. Is it CVN? CVN? Oh. Okay, what webpage are you talking about? You're talking about prisonradio.org. That's the website of Noelle Hanrahan. She's the founder of prisonradio.org. I also put earlier in the chat the website of the innocenceproject.org, which took up Imam Khalifa's case, and Missourians, the Missouri Justice Coalition, mojustice.org. M.L. Smith, founder of that organization, has been here on Black Liberation Media previously talking about the case of Imam Khalifa. Innocenceproject.org. Too late, she gone. But you can ask us, is it possible the Imam Khalifa being a Muslim had anything to do with them killing him? Probably. Muslims have always been othered in this country, always been the other. He didn't go in as a Muslim. He became a Muslim in prison. I know that's something that they hate. So I wouldn't put it past them. The news page about the Supreme Court, that is, but I keep calling it BuzzFeed. That is the Daily Beast. And I don't know if, well, some of y'all, did y'all notice this when I had it on the screen? This is the Daily Beast, May 24th, 2022, talking about the Supreme Court just said that evidence of innocence is not enough. It's not enough to be factually, it is no longer, if it has ever been, enough to be factually innocent to get out of a conviction, let alone get out of a death sentence. That's not enough. So that begs the question, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Innocent until proven guilty. You were proven guilty, you were convicted. Here's evidence that I am innocent. Oh, well, you had a fair trial, technicality, the information. What are we doing? What are we doing? The system is broken. The system was never meant to support us, to be here for us. We need a new system. Tear down this particular system. I wanted to say, though, real quick, that's from the Daily Beast. I don't know if y'all noticed, but over here in the corner, they took an ad. I didn't see who the ad was from, but did y'all notice this little ad over in the corner where they were talking about Hezbollah in Lebanon and where they got their money from? I had no idea that that's what was going on in Daily Beast. Asking, does Hezbollah get their money from Iran, from drugs, from money laundering, etc.? And it's not up here now. So I don't even know who sponsored that, but that's kind of crazy that that's coming from Daily Beast. All right. So again, my apologies to you all. I did not have a representative from Imam Khalifa's legal team. His attorney did not have a representative from Troy Davis's team, but Noelle Hanrahan, who has been a confidant of Mumia Abu Jamal for the past 30-something years. I wanted to talk about the differences. What were some of the legal maneuverings that were going on that seemed to give so much more time for us to organize around Mumia's sentence of death, Troy Davis's sentence of death, as opposed to Khalifah's sentence of death? My whole reason for doing today's show, he's already passed. I didn't do enough work to help stop his execution, but I was just concerned that it seemed like it popped up. And by the time I turned around, it was the day before the execution. As I said earlier, Freddie Owens' execution, I blinked and he was taken from us. So that's what disturbs me the most. I didn't get a chance to become emotionally entangled enough in Imam Khalifa's case the way so many others have. So many other folks who I know are just devastated right now, are not broken, but they are hurting because of this murder, this state-sanctioned murder that occurred this past Tuesday. They're going to need some time, but they're going to be back. They're going to continue to organize. They're going to continue to be active, because that's what we do. I did not do enough. I lifted one finger. To be honest with you, I didn't think it was going to turn out the way we wanted it to. And once they executed Freddie Owens, I was like, oh yeah, no, this brother ain't gonna make it. He's not gonna make it. And you can call it being negative. I think it's being pragmatic. But it's true, as Noelle says, when we fight, we win. We're not going to win if we don't fight. We have to fight. We must continue to fight. That's a given. But it still concerned me that this information seemed to have popped up at the last minute, which means what? With approximately how much? 6 minutes left. I don't want to intrude on any of Jackie's time. It means that we have got to become more aware. We've got to become more proactive of these cases. The death penalty is arbitrary. It is racist. It does not deter people from committing crimes. And the United States of America and all 50 of its states have no moral authority whatsoever to decide who should die because of their crimes. If that is the determination, the United States of America should have been put to death long ago. They have no moral authority. No moral authority on this continent or any place else they stick their noses in. The death penalty is arbitrary. It is racist. Black people are approximately 7 times more likely to be convicted of murder. We are 13% of the population. Over 50% of death rows across the country, majority black. That's just black folks. We ain't talking about other groups of people, right? So no. We have to organize around the death penalty before these folks are snatched and murdered from us. So murdered and snatched from us. So again, innocenceproject.org. Death penalty is not a federal issue. There's a federal death penalty, but for the most part, death penalty in conjunction with murder cases is a state issue. Whatever state you live in, it is incumbent that you learn your state's position on the death penalty. Has it been abolished in your state? Is it on hold, a moratorium in your state? Is it active? What's happening in terms of the death penalty in the state in which you live? How can you get involved to stop it? In addition to all the other things that we need to organize around. So before I end up doing too much ranting and raving, just want to say one more time, please continue to like, share, subscribe here on Black Liberation Media. Continue to support. Why can't I type? Yo, real quick. Georgia will probably never give the death penalty up. What was that statistic I saw? That the majority of states that have the most lynchings of black people are also the states that have the most death penalties, or most black people are on death row, something to that effect. But yeah, I'm beginning to feel like Mark Lamont Hill right now. I don't know what to say, so I'm going to sign off. But before I do, I want to go over this one more time. Shout outs to folks who have supported Root Work: Julian Kahn, Marcus Chow, Tara Graham, Kevin Atkinson, Ketrin, I think, Samara, Martin Hernandez, Asian Nicole Hodges, Keontae Josh Ingram, Samuel Gardner, Sean Ewell, Zinzale Bell, Carmen Morgan, Michael Richardson, Jose Benavidez, Gary Baca, Renee Yaworski, Mike Spikes, Dexter Story, and to all of you who have tuned in. So please continue to like, share, and subscribe. Continue to like, share, and subscribe this video and all of the other videos. Stay tuned. Our sister Jackie Lukman is on her way in. I'm going to get out of here before I get any more depressed around this murder and around my lack of involvement to stop this murder. Unfortunately, There are going to be many more before it's finally over with. So I will get an opportunity to be of better service, unfortunately. Anyway, thank you all again for tuning in. You stay safe out there. Take care. Peace to you.